Welcome to the Bret Boone podcast. I am Bret Boone. Today I am joined by, can I call it a triple threat now? Professional athlete, professional businessman. He's adding comic to his resume, fresh off the Tom Brady roast. Patriot Hall of Famer, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Drew Bledsoe. Drew,
What's happening?
thanks for coming on the. All right,
Oh, for sure, man. Yeah, been having fun, man. Turns out, dude, I think like everybody in the world watched this friggin' roast, dude. Like literally everywhere we go, that's all people are talking about.
I'm telling you, well, here's how I got it. You know how okay, I'm on my phone. I'm seeing clips roll in.
Mhm.
I heard you did it,
Right.
and then I see you come up. So now I got to watch.
Hmm.
But I'm just watching clips on the golf course. That's when I called you.
Yeah.
I think you were playing golf. It was the next
Yeah.
morning. I just wanted to tell you how funny it was, and I couldn't stop watching the clips. I got, you know how you get on the
Yeah.
tee
You get
box.
down one of those rabbit holes, right? Yeah.
Oh, it was unbelievable. And Nikki Glazer, we'll get into all of it. But I thought, for the most part, I saw Tom's reaction a couple days later, and I get
Mhm.
that point. I get that side of it when it's all said and done. But I think I've watched a few of those roasts. I think it's one of the greatest, maybe the best. And I don't know how many tens of millions of people watched it, but all right,
Yeah.
pretty cool.
The cool thing on the serious side is that it's like, I think we all needed that, man. It's like, it's okay to laugh at this stuff. Everybody's gotten so serious about everything. You say one thing, even if you tell one joke, and all of a sudden you're canceled. And man, people went deep on this thing. I mean, there were no punches pulled. And then I talked to one of the big Hollywood producer dudes a few days after, and I asked him, I was like, hey, is anybody getting backlash? Is anybody getting canceled from this thing? And he goes, no, not a single soul. I'm like, okay, that's awesome. That means it's okay to laugh at stuff again. And I think that part's important.
Yeah, I think it could have been, I mean, a big part in that shift, because you're right. I haven't heard 2 years ago if something like that would have happened. I mean, there would have been everybody would have been canceled. How dare you say?
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think you're right. It's like sometimes stuff's just funny, man. Sometimes stuff's
Yeah.
just
You
funny,
know?
and it's nothing personal, and just get over it. For us, we grew up in a locker room, so we kind
Yeah.
of know what that is.
Hmm.
You're going to get that in a locker room, but in life, I'm with you. I thought it was pretty awesome for the country. How did
Yeah.
it all come about? How did it all come about? How did you
It's,
first
I
meet?
was probably, oh, shoot. It was probably like, I'm going to say like a couple months before it happened. I just got an email from a gal that works for the NFL, and then just said, I asked if I was interested in talking about it. And originally I told him I couldn't do it because we had this big thing we were hosting up up at the winery. And, and then they said, no, we really want you to do it. What if we threw in a little more money and sent a plane for you? I'm like, well, if you send a plane for me, I'm pretty generally available. Uh, um, and, uh, and so like, okay, yeah, we can do that. And really glad I did, man. It was fun as hell. And and the funny thing is though, like people, they're like, man, did you write all that material? Like, well, most of it. It's like, wow, man, where do you come up with that stuff? And you hit it right on the head, Boone. Dude, if you've been in a locker room for a bunch of years, if you can't defend yourself and come back with jokes, dude, you're gonna get killed. And then that continues after we're done, with all of our idiot buddies with Richie and all these dudes that we hang out with. Dude, if you can't come back and defend yourself with jokes, you're in trouble. So it's something that we've practiced for most of our lives, quite honestly.
You're right. I mean, it's if we're out playing golf and we're hearing stuff like that, it's not a big deal. But
Hmm.
you open the show up with what in today's climate publicly, Billy. I don't know how many people saw it. It was just refreshing. It was
Yeah,
refreshing.
it was cool. And then I was, of course, getting ready to go do this thing. My wife and my kids were more nervous than I was about the thing, and they made me, run through my material with them. They're like, okay, that's okay. And then but I was kind of nervous, like, oh man, is this a little too far? Is this a little too far? And then Kevin comes out and opens the show with a jiu-jitsu joke, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess we're really taking the gloves off in this thing. And from there, yeah. And obviously Nikki Glazer is she was already kind of she was a star. She was well known, but this thing has put her on the top of the mountain, man. She just absolutely crushed.
Here's what I was thinking about when I was watching you. I go, okay, he's spoken publicly a ton of times.
Mm-hmm.
I know what it's like to get up and speak in front of hundreds of. Yeah, it's not but after you do it enough times, it's really not a big deal. And we'll throw our humor in there, like a zinger here and there. That's funny, a little bit funny, but we don't do it for a living. I'm not up there to be funny. I'm up there to give a good speech, give a good talk, whatever the topic may be, and lighten the mood once in a while. But all of a sudden, that's what I was thinking about you. I'm like, now all of a sudden he's sitting there. He's got like guys that do this for a living. So was the pressure like, yeah, I gotta present well, but at the same time, I've got to be funny. I thought I would be nervous doing that. I've never been in where the gist of it is, yeah, Bret, funny is the theme here.
Yeah, no, it was. That part was, yeah, that was new. And, and I wasn't like I got to go practice it like some, because I know Edelman said that he went and practiced at the Comedy Store, just to run through it and work on timing and so on. Dude, we walked out there. My first time doing comedy was in front of, fucking live on Netflix to millions of people. I'm like, well, okay, I guess we're just going to jump in the deep end and see if we can swim here. But the other part, though, that because people had asked me, my wife asked me, "Are you nervous?" And I said, "No, I feel pretty good about this one because I've done thousands of public speaking events and media and all that stuff like you've done." But this is the first time in probably 25 or 30 years I actually had something prepared to say rather than just, well, I'm going to hit these 3 points and tell a couple stories. This time, I actually knew the stuff and had run through it in my mind quite a bit. And so, the walk from where I was sitting up to the stage was nerve-wracking because I'm like, okay, well, here we go. It's
And
game
you're
time.
first. And you're first.
It's game time. And, your first play, it's like you're going into the Super Bowl, so it wasn't like, you're, first time taking a real at bat is in the friggin' World Series, so it's like, it was a bit of a high wire act, but ultimately I felt good about it. It was fun.
And I think as it went on, I was thinking about it because you broke the seal. You were the first athlete up there.
Yeah.
And by it was a long show. It was 3
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah.
And a couple of the jokes got kind of, the obvious talking points they were going to, the jiu-jitsu, just the typical things they were making fun of Brady for. But like 2 hours in, it's like, oh, Bledsoe covered that 2 hours ago. So I think it would be tough as an athlete that's never done it coming on later too. Like, how am I going to be fresh? That's been
Yeah.
said already 5 times. So going first, I think ended up being the best thing.
Yeah, there was some advantage there for sure. They did, we all had to, we worked with their writers, and I think that was one of the most important pieces of that was to make sure that everybody didn't do the exact same joke. There's only so much. I mean, this is Tom Brady we're talking about. There's not that much. You can't go make fun of his career,
Right.
So there's only a handful of places you can go. So obviously you're going to re-hit a lot of the stuff, but there was some advantage to going first. But the other part, Boone, though, that's kind of been funny for me. You finish doing that thing, and then we've all had that experience where somebody pisses you off, and then like the next day you're in the shower like, oh, I should have said
Right.
Why didn't I? Oh man, I want to go back. I hope that guy cuts me off in traffic again because I got to And so coming back through is like, oh man, I should have said this. I should have said this. So I don't know. I don't know who they're going to roast next, but hopefully they invite me back. But the one that really pisses me off though, because just like the quick little throwaway at the start, I should have thanked Kevin Hart for the short introduction.
Yeah.
Just right at the start. But
So, no, yeah, I was wondering if you get. Well, first of all, you had to. All right, you finish your set. You're
yeah,
done. There's got to be a little relief. Like, hey, and you know when you do good or you've spoken enough. You know when you give a great speech,
mhm,
or it's like, yeah, that's not. But I imagine you got off the stage and you thought, all right, I got through it. It went fine. You
yeah,
sit down. There's a little relief there, but then that starts kicking in. You're like, damn it, I should have said this, and I forgot.
yeah,
Man, I forgot to say that.
yeah. No, I was that really didn't start till the next day. When I was done, man, I was just happy I could just go sit down and enjoy the rest of the night because I knew it was going to be
Yeah.
long. And I just went and sat down, had a glass of wine. They had these little people sneaking out from the back to freshen up my wine. I just sat over there and giggled my ass off the rest of the evening. Well, I mean, until Ben Affleck came up, and then nobody laughed.
Oh,
But yeah, it was. There were a lot of reasons going early was great. Got to knock it out, and then just sit back and laugh the rest of the night.
all right. So you get together. It's before the. Uh, we're getting ready to go. I guess. Let me set the scene a little bit. You're getting ready to go. Pre-show meeting. Uh, they go over ground rules. Like you can't go here. You can't because you saw Brady early. I don't know if it was serious or it wasn't serious. Looked like it was kind of serious when he
It was,
when he
yeah,
bumped Ross and said, "Hey, man, it's almost like that had been covered, but Ross went out there and still did it."
yeah, yeah. So I don't know, like probably, I don't know, 3 weeks before, we kind of had this pre-show Zoom call with some of the writers and with Jeff Ross and with some of the people. And first they ask if there's anything I was uncomfortable, any place I wouldn't go. And at that point, we didn't know Kraft was going to be there, and or if he was or wasn't. And I said, yeah, I won't. I'm not doing anything on Kraft at the massage parlor. I'm not doing anything about his wife. If I'm doing something with Kraft, it's going to be very lighthearted. Maybe we could go Jewish or something, but even that's a pretty touchy subject. And they're like, yeah, that's pretty universal. Everybody's kind of agreed that we're not going to talk about Tom's kids, and then we're not going to tell Kraft jokes. Those were the two ground rules. And other than that, everything was fair game.
Uh, any jokes that didn't make it on the? You said you wrote it. I think you wrote it. You and your kids and your wife all collaborated. Were
Yeah,
there
and,
any?
and my
Were
and
there
my
any jokes
brother.
that got? Were there any jokes that got kicked out?
Yeah, there were. So I sent them. We had our first meeting, and then I sent them probably, I don't know. I mean, you know how much material there is. I mean, you play with guys for a while, and you're in the league. I mean, there's infinite material. Um, and for the other guys too. Um, and then they kind of whittled it down. And the biggest thing that the writers helped with was helping to sequence things. Because I sent them like all these random ideas, and they're like, "No, we're going to put it in this sequence." And then obviously they took some stuff out. The funny thing is, though, or the interesting piece is they sent back a handful of other stuff, and I vetoed probably 4 or 5 jokes just because I just didn't think they were that good. But 2 of them they ended up giving to Brady, which was funny. So I'm like, oh, that was that joke they gave me first, and I turned it down. So Tom got my scraps. But then there was one bit, and I've sworn I won't tell it publicly, so I'll tell you some other time. But where I had a Giselle joke, and my wife looked at it. She goes, "No, you're not doing that. You're not doing that." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, that's probably a little too far." So then but she was the one that came back with the idea. I did the one bit about Tom's favorite wine is "Where's the Flag," and obviously he got used to not being touched like the end of his marriage. That was actually my wife's joke, and she doesn't like the fact that I'm putting that out there, but I thought it was a funny joke, and it's pretty PG, I mean, it's
Yeah.
that one's not nearly as bad as what the other comics were doing to him. So yeah, we went back and forth. It probably changed, I don't know, a dozen times before we actually settled on the final deal.
Did you expect? Well, you got a lot too. You got a lot thrown your way. You were ready for that, just pro, because of the relationship with you and Brady and your careers and how
Mhm.
they intermingle. Did you expect that?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, that's I've loved watching these roasts forever, and going in, you know, you throw some stuff, but it's going to come back at you. Um, Gronk took maybe took more jokes than Tom did. Um, Belichick got buried, and which was funny. I was glad for him, just on a personal level. I was glad that that he showed up, because they didn't know kind of for sure whether or not Belichick was going to show up, but he actually is a pretty funny dude when you get him outside of a football setting. And I think for him, on a personal level, for people to see that he actually can laugh at himself and tell some jokes, I think that was really good for him. He certainly took plenty of heat. But yeah, Sam J was the one that went after me, and I had never met her. I didn't meet her until the after show. I'm like, dude, what the hell did I do to you? And actually, I didn't call her a dude, but which would have been funny. But but met her after the show, and she's just an absolute sweetheart. She's a huge fan from Boston, and that was the cool thing, like the after party. All these comics they're such nice people. They're just so grateful for their, because they've had to, there's some I think there's some comparisons, honestly, to being a professional athlete, where people look at you, oh man, look at you, you just landed on top of the mountain. Like, no, I actually worked my whole friggin' life to get here. And probably a little more similar to baseball even than the other professional sports, because you think about what these guys have to do. They work their way up. They're funny in their friend group, and then they finally get the balls to get on stage at some little open mic night. So that'd be like, college baseball or whatever,
Right.
and then they get to single A. They actually get to open up for somebody, and then they work their way up, and then they finally make it to the bigs, and everybody's like, oh wow, man, Nikki Glaser, she had this moment, she's an instant star. Like, no, she's actually been working on this, and striking out, if you will, at multiple clubs, and trying to climb that ladder and finally getting there. So, but because of that, they're just incredibly grateful for where they are, and they're very kind people. Nikki Glazer's an absolute sweetheart. Met her at the party afterwards. She introduces me to her boyfriend, and she told us that super awful joke about. I'm like, dude,
about Brady, yeah,
like, dude, and he goes, no, this is. We've been dating for 10 years. I get to take the brunt of a lot of this stuff, but she's just the nicest friggin' person. I told her I think she's kind of like a Bond villain. She's really pretty, and then just a trained killer. So she's like, she could be like in a comedy Bond movie where she pretends like she's super, super sweet and pretty, and then just comes and rips your heart out.
Right. You don't expect it coming from her.
Yeah, exactly.
Your relationship with Brady, you were teammates, you were kind of his mentor. I mean, I almost think of it as like Drew's kind of like almost a father figure in a way, to him coming up and doing what he did. Yes. But how is your relationship with him? Is it a ex-teammate buddy, or is it a buddy that, we stay in contact, on a regular
No, it's an ex-teammate, buddy. We haven't seen each other for a bunch of years. We keep in touch. We exchange messages, and we've jumped on the phone a handful of times over the years. He's off flying all around the world. You see where he's like after the roast, he's in freaking Italy, and then he's back in Vegas, and then he's all over the map. We tried to connect this winter skiing up in Montana, but we missed each other by a day. But it's a good relationship. It's a lot of mutual respect, and what I said at the end of the roast is sincere. I do have a sense of pride. I'm not going to say parental pride, but a sense of pride in what he's done, over the years. But I was very sincere with what I said at the end, where I was like, I'm proud of what he's done, but I'm more proud of how he's done it. One of the very biggest stars in the world, and he's handled it all with really pretty remarkable grace. And so that part I'm proud of, because he's been able to do all this stuff, and anybody and everybody that was a teammate of his, they all just love him. Even though I think later in his career they didn't know him very well, like he wasn't going and hanging out with the boys, but everybody just loves and respects him.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he really, because when you get that big and that famous, you think about the in my arena, the New York arena, the Jeters when he was
Yeah,
the captain, and it's a different level of fame, and you have a little more responsibility because everybody is watching every single move, and I agree with you. I think he's, with all that's been on his plate for so long, I think he's handled it admirably. It's not that easy to do, and everybody pulling at you all the time. Um,
exactly. And the crazy thing, and you and I think we were fortunate to play, for the most part before all the social media stuff, and most of our, at least, well, my entire career before everybody had cameras in their pocket that could immediately broadcast to the entire friggin' world. And so guys at that level of fame, they've got to be on 100% of the time. If you're on 99.9% of the time, then you get that one time where you do something, say something, whatever, and somebody happens to capture a video clip, it immediately goes viral to the whole friggin' world. And so it's a different thing that guys at that level have to deal with, in terms of just knowing that you're essentially kind of on stage 100% of the time, unless you're inside your own house.
yeah, I think that's true nowadays. The athletes nowadays, it's like they've got to be more careful. We used to be able to go out and have a beer
Yeah,
and not really worry about things.
yeah,
Today's when everybody, you don't know anybody's motivation anymore, and you're right, it's just one moment, maybe
mhm,
not your greatest moments. There's 8 cameras on you, and it's like it can ruin your life, and it
yeah,
shouldn't. But
yeah,
that's the society that we live in. All right,
yeah.
I want to hear. I've been checking out, so I know you've been doing the rounds, and I've caught you on Edelman's and a few of the shows. Want to hear about the story? How did you meet Giselle?
Oh yeah, man. It was funny, man. We were skiing up in Montana, and I had said hi to Tom earlier that day. I knew he was there. I hadn't seen him, but I saw him out on the slopes, recognized him because he was wearing just this awful Under Armour ski outfit. Like, dude, looked like he got something in the rental shop. And he comes over and he says hey, and then and we didn't ski together because I think he's gotten better on skis, but at that point he was a really shitty skier. Um, and so we'd go off, and then late in the day, I was on a phone call and was kind of up in the middle of the mountain, and while I was on this phone call, the whole mountain closed. There was nobody left. And so I just kept ripping down. I'm the only one left on the whole mountain. And I get to the bottom, and I can see Tom down there because nobody else would wear this awful ski outfit that he was wearing. And there was a female with him. So I just assumed that was Giselle. And I had not met her at this point. So I came ripping down with the intent that I was going to spray Tom with snow. So I come in hot, throw a big wall of snow. Well, of course, it just covers Giselle with snow head to toe and misses Tom entirely. He didn't know what was going. So he looks over at me with this look like, all right, it's go time, dude. You don't get to spray my wife with snow. And I'm like, hey man, it's Drew. It's Drew. And so I was like, hey, Giselle, nice to meet you. And she leans in and gives me a big hug. Which obviously I wasn't going to turn down. And then I bumped into him later that night, and Giselle said to me, she goes, I usually don't give people a big hug when I very first meet them, but you don't know how you're talked about in our house, which I thought was just a really cool moment. Obviously, as I said, there's a lot of mutual respect, between the two of us, but to hear that from her, that that I'm spoken of well in their home, that meant a lot.
No, and I think it's cool, and that's why I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
You were teammates. The way it ended, the way you guys met was a
Mhm.
little. You were the starting quarterback. He was the
Yeah.
up and coming kid, and I think there is that. There's that Tom. There's an age gap, so it's like
Mhm.
you are a father figure to Tom, and that doesn't surprise me at all. That in his house, and Drew taught me this when I was just getting. I think I don't know, kind of dorky, but I think it's cool. I think
Yeah,
it's
no,
cool.
it was cool. It was a flattering moment, and also kind of funny.
All right, let's rank the all right, your boys. Let's go to the comic for you. For you. Uh we'll go the athlete side. So I just picked out a few. Peyton, Brady himself, Gronk, Edelman. Rank them 1 to 4. One being
Oh man, you know, let's see. I thought Edelman did a great job. I really did. I thought he was funny. Delivery was good. Um, Gronk obviously was funny, but Gronk he's just Gronk. You know, that's
that was like that wasn't even like a roast for him. That was just like him.
yeah. And he's and by the way, I think you know and people can probably guess he's a pretty damn smart dude. And so he plays this dummy character, but and he understands that that character is paying the bills for him. Now he also is that character, all the time, but he's a smart dude. He's not a dunce. But I thought Jules killed it. I thought Gronk did a nice job. Tommy defended himself quite well. Peyton was funny, but that was just a very, I don't know, that was just a very Peyton presentation. Just very buttoned up and just And if you've ever spent any time with Peyton, he's a funny dude. It would have been, he could have let fly a little bit more than he did. So I don't know. I thought everybody did a great job, but if you want me to pick one of those guys that I was going to put at the top,
Yeah.
I might put Jules at the top of that deal. I thought he nailed it.
I thought, who I thought did real good? I thought Brady himself did good because all night he's wearing it. He knows he's wearing it.
Mhm.
Probably being paid pretty darn handsome to wear it.
Yeah.
But he got up there, and I thought, he's go back to that public figure. He's perceived one way. I thought he did pretty good. And when you talk about brand traits, and they're so important in today's life for us, and being ex-athletes, I thought he added to it. Like,
Yeah.
oh, look at Brady letting his hair down and let it go. I thought he did a really good job at finishing it up. I don't think it was a dud at all. The ending.
No, I thought he did a great job. He did a great job, and he's it's the same thing, man. You're in the locker room for 20 something years. You've got a lot of that stuff, and you've been able to dish it out, and you've been able to take it. So I think, it probably was good for people to see him, laugh, and then also to be able to laugh at himself. I mean, it's like we were talking earlier. That level of fame. You're essentially told that you're God's gift to the world,
Right.
forever, and to be able to take it and laugh at yourself, I thought was really good. I was, I felt for Randy Moss a little bit. He was pretty damn nervous.
You could tell.
Getting up there, and also, and I'm assuming that like his stuff was I'm assuming was written for him, and I didn't think it was super strong material, but he was nervous. That was funny because I'm sitting over there, I'm sitting right next to him, and I think the order was, and I can't remember, it was Kevin Hart, then Jeff Ross, then I went, and then Nikki Glaser goes, and she gets a standing ovation, and then Randy's got to follow that, dude. I mean, like, you don't want to go follow Zeppelin, you want to follow Nickelback, and he had to go, he had to go up and follow the winner of the entire night, but I thought everybody did a pretty good job, man, because like we were talking about earlier, man, that's a nerve-wracking friggin' situation, dude, when you got to go do this live. It's a high wire act, and so but yeah, I thought all the athletes acquitted themselves pretty nicely, and yeah, so nobody really bombed except for Ben Affleck.
Now on that side, well, I think I know who you like, Nikki Glaser. How could you not think Nikki was unbelievable? But you know what I liked? I like that Tony Hinchcliffe when he starts with the nice shoes, bitch, out of the crowd, and then he went for. I thought he was awesome.
So it's funny because Jules and I both, when they went to the crowd, one of the things that allowed us to do was to get up and go to the bathroom. Like I had to piss, right? So we both get up and go. And so we were gone at the start of his act. And then we walked in when he did like the Larry King, Rodney King, Martin Luther King, that whole bit. And it was like, dude, it was like Eminem doing comedy, man. It was so fast, dude. He was ripping. Yeah, he crushed. Got to visit with him for a while afterwards. And again, another one of these just super, super great dudes. Andrew Schultz, I'm a huge fan of and have been for the last couple of years. He was killer. Yeah, I mean, it's they're pros for a reason, man. They crush it. So yeah, that was fun. But yeah, Andrew Schultz, Hinchcliffe was just on point and absolutely killed.
Dana White, I think we got Dana White coming up on the podcast soon.
Nice.
His opening line was pretty good. He just basically, all right, I'm here and F you.
Yeah, exactly.
Go ahead.
No, it was good, man. And the interesting thing, there's some of the world's best comedians were there just to watch. My brother and my buddy were sitting kind of up on the stage, and the whole night, Chappelle's just standing there behind him. He's there just to watch, and Shane Gillis was sitting like right in the audience, like right over here. And I'm a big fan of his, one of the funniest dudes. I'm just over there, we're kind of making eye contact, laughing at this stuff. And it was just kind of cool that some of those guys were like, hey, we're just going to show up and watch this stuff, But I did talk to Chappelle for a little bit afterward, and it's like, dude, you should have been up there. And he goes, man, I know. He goes, I thought about just walking up on stage and going, which would have been unbelievable. You see Chappelle just come walking out of the back, totally unscripted, would have crushed. But it was just kind of cool, though, that some of these world famous comedians just came for the show. It was cool.
Yeah. It is. It was kind of that was a big deal. I mean, the more I take it in after it's all done, I'm like, that's going to be one of the biggest shows, not just roasts. Mm-hmm. That's going to be one of the biggest shows ever watched, ever.
It's been weird, Ben. Like we were just down in Vegas, and we saw see Dead and Company at the Sphere. And we're just watching the show, and they go to intermission, and all of a sudden behind me, there are like 8 people behind me, like, dude, we just watched the roast. You were awesome.
Yeah.
Like it's, I don't know. It's sort of a cultural phenomenon, which again, makes me pretty glad I said yes rather than waving it off because I was going to go do a wine deal.
Any uncomfortable moments where you went, or it could have been the Affleck routine.
Yeah, well, that was just weird, dude. And
it was about nothing.
Yeah, it was just sort of a social media rant. It was. I was sitting there next to Randy. I was like, "Hey, man, what's he talking about?" And Randy's like, "I don't know." It was that part was a little bit cringeworthy. The whole Kraft, Belichick, Brady thing. It was uncomfortable, but I think uncomfortable in kind of a good way. There's obviously great respect, but between those guys, even though things at the end weren't ideal. And there was Kraft and Belichick. I think that was the first time they'd seen themselves since the split, and they bumped into each other pre-show. It was a little bit awkward, but they spent probably 10 or 15 minutes just chatting on the side. And, so there was some of that interpersonal stuff that was, that was a bit awkward. But overall, I thought it was all like almost entirely positive. I was sort of curious what Kim Kardashian was doing there. It was like didn't really seem to flow with the rest of it, but she's also got 1 billion followers. So, for Netflix to have her there probably created another, 50 million views or something just because of her following that's outside of, mostly outside of sports. But but
this this is you now. This is your new deal.
exactly. Uh, yeah. So yeah, that was just, it was sort of odd, like trying to figure out, hey, why is she here? Um, but she did have the one funny joke. She's like, I was kind of taking offense, Tom, but I think my family's done enough to defend ex-athletes. I was like, okay, that's funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was sort of odd to see that. Yeah.
What's the how's the wine orders going since the roast?
Yeah, I've been a lot more hits on the old web page. It certainly doesn't hurt, and we just need more wine to sell. We're sold out of most of our good stuff, and so that part certainly doesn't hurt. Draw it. And so the funny thing though, Boone, was like I didn't know if it was going in, if it was okay to like throw in some wine plugs, and that was.
I thought it was brilliant right out of the gate. It was
Well,
awesome.
the wine stuff, that bit actually came from the writers. That one, except at least the start of it was from them, and then we added on to it a little bit. But it was like, oh, okay, I guess the writers are saying it's okay for us to throw in some wine material, and so that was helpful. I really appreciated that from them.
And what is it? Is it double back or is it
Double back,
the
yeah, it's double back, and then we've got a couple other wineries as well. Double back's the main one. Then we've got some Pinot Noir from Bledsoe McDaniel's winery, and then we've got the Bledsoe family winery, which is a little more experimental. Lots of different varietals, and also priced at a level where more people can access it. So, but business continues to go well. There's a lot of headwinds in the wine world right now, which is the economy, and all of this kind of stuff. But we're somehow defying gravity. It's still going well for us.
Very cool. Well, Drew, I appreciate it, man. This was awesome. Really cool coming on. We'll catch up soon. You know what? I got a question for you. Non-related to the roast. Uh, from my alma mater, Caleb Williams. You got any advice for him? The 1-1 this year.
I think he's a remarkable talent. I think that he's going to have an amazingly successful career. But when you come in and you're drafted in that spot, you're not going to the last year's Super Bowl team. You're going to a team that struggled a bit. Even though the Bears, that wasn't actually their pick, it was the Panthers pick. So he's going to have to be patient. He's going to have to be able to have some thick skin and take his lumps early on. It almost never do you come in right away and have immediate success. That just doesn't usually happen. So he's going to have some thick skin. He's going to have to know that he's going to take some lumps early on. But I think ultimately, he's going to be a very successful guy. They're putting some pieces around him already. Need to protect him. And then the other piece that changes a bit when you go from college to the pros, the windows get smaller. You've got to be more precise. And then the other thing is you've got to know when to give up on a play, which as a competitor is a really hard piece to learn. Because I think he's sort of wired like most, really good quarterbacks to think he can make any throw at any time. And there are times in the NFL where you can't try to force that one in there because then you're going to turn the ball over and hurt your team. So he's going to have to make sure that he learns to a certain extent to play within a system. He's obviously going to make these flashy plays that are going to be incredible, but you have to be able to do that without causing harm. You can't take that big chance and turn the ball over when maybe your team needs to have an incompletion and just punt the ball away. And so he's going to have to fight through those battles of knowing when to surrender on a play, because I know that's not in his nature.
Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. What's that situation like?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, man. I happen to think Justin Fields has got a future. I really, truly do. I think he was just in a really bad situation there with the Bears. And I'll be curious, man, like the rest of the world, to see how it goes for Russ in Pittsburgh, because It was a disaster in Denver. It just was
Yeah.
not, it was just not good across the board. The optics were bad, and then the production wasn't there. And he played a little better late, but yeah, that whole situation was just a mess. And so, seeing if he can resurrect himself will be one of the biggest storylines in the NFL this year.
All right. Well, there's your football update along with the roast all wrapped into one. Drew, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate
Absolutely, Brett.
I
Good to talk to
appreciate
you, man. And I'll my son's still down there in San Diego, so we're gonna try and get down there. Maybe we'll grab Rick and grab my kid and go tee it up.
Yeah, let's do it for sure. For those of you watching the Boone podcast, now have our own YouTube channel. Appreciate you tuning in. For those of you listening on the Odyssey app, wherever you get your apps, keep it there. Till next time, I'm Bret Boone, Drew Bledsoe. We're out.